this is Jamie Magridge. Welcome to Jamie's Craft Table. Today I'm going to show you how I made this card. It's got a little pocket in there for a gift card or monies or whatever. It's a pretty simple card. Let's get started. Well, it's a little complicated, but it's simple. Okay, let me bring in my supplies. Start with for paper. I have a scrap of black, a scrap of white, and a scrap of basic gray. I have a strip of gray, basic gray, which is 1 1/4 by 5 1/4, and I've embossed it. I have a piece of white, which is 2 1/2 by 5 inches. I have another piece of white, which is 3 1/2 by 5 inches. I have a piece of black, which is 3 3/4 by 5 1/4 inches. I have a piece of white, which is 5 1/4 by 5 1/4 by 4 1/4, and a piece of black, which is 5 1/4 by 4 1/4. And then my card base, which is 5 1/2 by 8 1/2, and I haven't scored it yet. I'm going to do that with you today. I'll turn these all over, put them away. For supplies other than paper, I'm going to be using this punch here, and I'm going to go ahead and use it on this gray scrap. I'm going to punch out 2 of these little sprigs. Put those with my supplies. Let's see if it'll fit on this side. Okay, and I can get those off my table. Oh, and that's the sprig punch. Did you even see me doing it? Because I was off camera, probably. So you just stick it in there like that. Squeeze it part way, it holds it. Squeeze it the rest of the way, it pops it out. Okay. I'm going to be using natural textures. I'm just using this one. And then I'm using this flower and this leaf from Lovely You. I'm using this die set, basic borders. I'm using this one here. I'm using painted textures. That's what I did use for the embossing of that gray strip. And I forgot to get them out, but the alphabet dies, what did I do with them? I had them out, I just didn't put them over here. The playful alphabet dies, I just die cut out high, and from this circle here, from the white scrap, I die, and those are the tasteful label dies. I die cut out a white circle. Okay, let's get all this out of the way. And then we're going to bring in our card base, and we're going to go ahead and score that. And I'm going to score it at 2 3/4. Can you see that? Yep. 2 3/4. And then at 7. Okay, now we're going to get this out of the way here. I'm going to bring in my bone folder. Move this so I have a good surface to score on. I'm first going to fold this one in. Make sure it lines up well. Score it, or burnish it. And I'm going to bring this one in, even though I've scored it. I want to make sure those edges line up. It really doesn't have to, because it's going to be underneath. But let's score that well. Or burnish that well. That's the basic base, okay? So we'll put that aside. Now, on this piece, oh, I didn't show you the colors of ink. Polished pink, fresh freesia, misty moonlight, soft succulent, and so saffron. And the reason I picked the gray as the base is because these are all little grayed out colors. So that's why I picked that. So I'm going to bring in the polished pink. And this little flower. And I'm going to stamp that little flower on here, down towards the bottom center. Okay. And I'm going to bring in the soft succulent. And I'm going to stamp this little leaf. I just realized I forgot a piece. Awesome. Okay, I'm done with those. Well, actually, I'm not. I forgot this circle here, so let me put you on pause and get that circle cut out and figure out which one it is. Okay, I'm back. This is the 5th from the largest of the layering circles. I had to figure it out because I just used a scrap from my bin, so this might be one larger, but that's alright. I like the smaller frame better. Okay, so that's that. Alright, let's set that aside. Let's bring in this piece, and this is the 3 1/4 or 3 1/2 by 5-inch piece. That'll be the piece that goes on the inside like that. And we're going to stamp that little flower again in there. I probably could have just left these open, but I want to do it on this side this time, so I'm just going to stamp it here. Oops. Oh dear. And here. Like that. Perfect. Okay, set that aside. And I don't know if you can see that, but I stamped in that with the wrong color ink, so I'm just going to take this and dab it. Now it's all gone. I'm going to start with that color, so I don't know why I'm shutting it, but okay, let me get these other ones out of the way. Alright, now I'm going to bring in this piece, which is 5 by 4 1/4. I'm going to bring in this stamp, and I'm going to stamp just random pattern on it using this. Oh, right or wrong, just stamp. I'm going to stamp one of that color. I'm going to bring in my chamois, wash it off. I'm going to bring in, let's see, let's do yellow next. No, I'm going to do blue next. Make sure you can see. And I'm going to change the direction of it. I'm going to stamp the blue one down here. And then I'm going to, and this is Misty Moonlight. And I'll stamp one up here, and it's going to be going off the page, so make sure you have a scrap paper. Okay. Let's bring in the soft succulent. Turn it this way. I'm going to stamp one of these here. I'm going to clean it. I'm going to bring in the saffron. Stamp this one going this direction here. Okay. Rinse that off. Now I'm going to bring in the fresh freesia. I'm going to stamp one down here. I'm going to stamp one up here. And I think I need a little bit here. I went a little bit in farther. So let's decide. Let's do yellow, I think. Something bright. So wash this again. And a little bit of yellow right there. Okay. And that's all the stamping. Okay. Now I'm going to bring in that die. This one. And if you want, you can measure like the tick marks. I put it on here. I wanted to have a little bit of a frame going around it. And I just took this and I lined it up so that the top was about where this overlaps just a little bit, but the bottom was out farther. I didn't want it to go past my edge of my card. And then I ran it through. And when I measured it on this one, it was 2 11/16. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So one tick before 2 3/4. So that's about where it's going to end up. And then the bottom one was at 3. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and run that through. It doesn't have to be exact, but if you want to tick off and then make sure it lines up with those on the, you can do that. Just hopped. Okay, I ended up with something like that. It did slide a little bit on my mat, so I didn't end up with any of the blue on the top, but that's alright. Alright, that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to bring in the black piece that was the same size. This one. I'm going to line this up so that these edges match. I can't. Alright, well I'm just going to line this up so that it's the same. Wait a minute, which one? Maybe I have the wrong one. I did. Okay. So I'm going to line this up so that it gives me just a little bit extra. The stitch line is in the center, so I gave myself about a 1/16 of an inch around the edges. I did want to make sure that it didn't hang off the edge. If it does a little bit, it's going to be okay too. And then I'm going to tape this one down using Post-it tape because I don't want it to move. Okay, and I'll go run that through, and I will be right back. Okay, I got this. Let's see how that turned out. Very nice. Okay, this is going to mat under this on the inside, and this one's going to be on the outside. Okay, so we can assemble. I think I have everything ready now. Okay, so this piece is going to go on this flap here, and you're going to leave that 1/8 of an inch border on 3 sides. So you don't want to glue on the whole back of this. You just want glue here, and I'm going to use dimensionals. So I'm going to bring in my dimensionals, and I'm going to make sure they're away from the edge a little bit, and I'm going to put dimensionals on that little flap there. The reason you don't want to put the glue on this is because this part's going to hang over, and you don't want it sticking onto the other side. Okay, take those backs off. Okay, now I'm going to center this up, hover over it as best we can, set it down. If we like it, push it down. Now we're going to open it up. And on this piece here that's sticking over, we're going to put a dimensional there, dimensional here, dimensional here. This one's going to go there like that. You want it to make sure it sticks out the distance you want it to stick out. So I put it where I wanted it, like this. Made sure it was where I wanted it. Must have moved just a little bit when I set it up because it's not quite square. That's alright. Pull it out just a little bit more, and it's not going to matter much. Okay, so get it where I want it. Now I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to put glue here. Well, I'll fumble fingers for this card, I apologize. Take these backs off. And it moved, but we'll guess. It's going to go about there. Like that. Glue it down. There we go. It's a little crooked on the inside. Let's straighten it. I'd rather it be straighter than that a little bit. Okay, well, that's what it's going to have to be. Okay, so there's that part. Okay, now this part here, we're going to bring in this piece. We're going to glue that down right to this little lip. Now, if you'd rather, you could have just embossed just the flap instead. I'd already glued mine shut. And I'm going to open this up. I'm going to bring in the black layer and the layer we stamped, and I'm going to make a mat. Mat that together. Now this is one thing that's different on this original. I didn't have this mat. But I felt it needed it. Okay. And that's going to go in here like that. Now I just need a tiniest little bit of glue along these edges. Just the tiniest little bit. Because you want to be able to slide that card in and out. This could get mounted on there like that if you want, but I'm just going to do it like this. Hold it for a second. This will go underneath there. There we go. Okay. Now this piece, the one that was 2.5 by 5, is going to get glued here. Okay, now let's glue these two together. And this is going to get popped onto the front of the card. I'm going to add a few dimensionals on the back. I'm keeping them a little bit away from the edge because I do want to add these little sprigs that we punched out. A couple of those. And stick it on. I'm just going to hold those down at the same time, and then my high. Well, there they are. Black on black, you can't see it. I'm just going to glue those on. Okay, so there's the card we just made together. Whoops, that didn't stay glued. Well, I might have to add a little more glue. And I might have to glue that piece down like I did on my first one. Now I'm going to rub that, because when you rub it, it causes heat. The friction causes heat, which causes the glue to dry a little faster. Just make sure you have clean fingers so you don't rub dirt all over. And this is going to go in there. And I might need to trim that down just a hair because it's catching. There we go. There's a card we just made together. Here's a card I did previously. Like I said, this one's glued in, but I felt it needed that mat. So what I might have done is trim this down 1/4 of an inch so that my black layer would be a little bit smaller. So you would have more room here on the edges and you could use tear and tape. This way. You can slide this in and out. Write your little note on it. Attach a gift card to it. Or you could just glue it down like I did on the first one. Well, thank you so much for joining me today at Jamie's Craft Table. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope you can find a little bit of time to play with some stamps, ink, and paper.